In this Valheim build guide, I show you how to build a treehouse Ewok village. They told me I was crazy building in the swampland, but yet here we are, the ultimate treehouse. And what's crazy is that this build is completely indestructible. I've actually discovered the swamplands is the safest place to build. All of these big trees count as a foundation and they're all indestructible, meaning no enemies can destroy you and they don't even attack you because you're so high up in the trees. This build even has an emergency exit plunge pool as well. But today I have a sponsor that's going to help you with this build. It's Opera GX, the world's first browser designed for gamers. You can limit the amount of CPU, RAM, and network usage that Opera GX uses. I tested this. I opened 10 tabs in Chrome and 10 tabs in Opera GX, and damn! Opera GX was 3 times more efficient than Chrome. I then limited the RAM and memory Opera GX uses and it became 10 times more efficient. You can also pop out YouTube videos and streams and overlay them on games so you can follow along in the background while you work, drag it around and change the size of it. And you can also log into Discord, Facebook, WhatsApp and Twitch on the sidebar to get a notification whenever somebody goes live. And GX Corner will keep you up to date on the latest game releases on your chosen platform. It will also show you free games and gaming news like what's going on with Starfield. It also puts all of the websites you visit into forced dark mode. And you can completely customize the designs, colors, wallpapers, and make custom animations with Razer Chroma. So download Opera GX right now from the link in the description and test it out for yourself. Now the reason the swamp biome is so amazing for building on is because you have these huge trees that just can't take damage, so it makes them indestructible. Compared to, say, for example, the ancient tree, if you hover over a tree and it says ancient tree, this can be destroyed and you can see it does take damage and eventually you can knock it down. And that's a great source of ancient wood and normal wood. But these trees don't take any damage. So if you go ahead and you construct yourself a workbench and you attach like even a wooden beam to the tree like this, you guys can see that these beams count as being structurally supported by the tree. So essentially you can build things coming out of the top of this tree and they'll count as having 100% structural support instead of having to build them from the ground. And since this tree is indestructible, it means none of the enemies that come near you can destroy your base because they can't attack the foundation, which is the tree. So the key is to have an entrance to your base that is pretty much impossible for the AI to basically enter. And usually if you use this staircase, it's quite tricky for the AI to kind of figure out how to get up a long staircase. So I would recommend using the wood ladder to basically stop the AI from being able to attack you. Especially after you get up to a certain height in the treetops, the AI aren't even going to get triggered by you being there, so you are 100% safe. So I've been walking around the entire swamp for a while now, and I've basically found my favorite sort of looking point to build a base. And that is this tree that will spawn randomly in the swamp, and it kind of like leans over from the ground, and then it ends up sort of in the other tree canopy, which we can build between and start sort of a base that looks like an Ewok village. So I'm going to be using this tree because I can kind of imagine like building a ladder up the back of it. And you guys will find these trees all over the swamp. This isn't like unique to my world or anything. And I'm going to be using the wood ladder because that's kind of a difficult one for the AI to climb up. I'm also going to be starting it on top of the tree. So, you know, I can actually jump up here and I can start climbing at the top here. And that's going to be how I build at the back of this onto my base here. Now you can see currently that ladder is yellow. As long as it's touching the tree, it counts as having full structural support. The crafting bench we built down there has basically got a vertical range as well as a horizontal range. So essentially you're going to have to build some crafting benches as you go up the tree. I'm actually going to start using the wooden stair, which I always prefer to the ladder, just because it's so much easier for your character to climb this and you kind of get stuck on it a lot less. So I'm going to build this into the side of the tree, so it kind of looks like, you know, it's extending out the side, which looks, you know, really natural in my opinion. So when you're going around the corner, what you want to do is you want to use the 1x1 wooden floors and just put those down like so. Then you create a little platform. You can go back to your wooden stairs and you can actually rotate it around the corner again like this, and you just end up with like a slow curve that sort of naturally follows the tree line. And if you find yourself going quite far away from the tree, what you can do is you can just put down a wooden beam like so, and now this whole structure counts as being supported because that wooden beam is touching the tree, which sounds ridiculous, but that is literally how it works. So you guys can see currently this floor is red. That's no problem though. I can just attach it to this tree, and now it's touching this tree, it's green again. So really easy to build a structural support system up here. So just here I've kind of created like, you know, a sort of natural rope ladder, or at least the best I can do with one. I could also attach some beams here just so it looks a little bit more supportive. So there we go. I've now transformed this area into another rope ladder, and we're just kind of, you know, trying to have the aesthetic of a sort of ropey looking treehouse structure as we make our way to the top. I want there to be like a journey through the trees. Now, I must say, I do actually prefer it without the beams and just having a really loose structure. Even though it's a little bit more unsafe, I do definitely prefer the look. Okay, so what I've done is I've had a look in the sky, and I can see this is like the tallest looking tree in this area. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start building up to the top of this one using the staircase once again. And we're going to slowly go around the outside of this tree. Now, the nice thing I like about building tree houses is that the structure organically sort of develops because of the trees being organic structures. You don't really know what your house is going to end up looking like until you get to the end. Alright, so let me just quickly run you guys through what we have so far here. So as you can see, I built another crafting bench just here, and then I continued this sort of rickety wooden staircase up this tree here. So you can easily get access to the sort of roof stage. And by the way, these are just like 2D sort of pixel branches. You can walk through them. Ideally, you don't want to build in them because it can look a little bit messy, but it's nice when you're just sort of walking through the branches up the staircase. So I've got to this point now when it kind of looks like, you know, I could imagine there being a bit of a treehouse in between this sort of tree structure here. Maybe I even build up that branch a little bit more. But I can imagine the first room kind of being here, like a little sort of tree capsule, you know. And I'm just building up to like the edge of those branches, so it kind of looks like it's being cradled from the ground. I kind of like things to look somewhat realistic, you know, not completely, but somewhat. So the main difficulties I had here creating the tree house itself, or the first tree house building of the Ewok village, was building into the actual tree stumps, because obviously you're going to have a little bit of difficulty when you actually come to putting the roof on top of the house, and you need to make sure that you've got like a sealed outer envelope layer so that when you come to like rest in your bed or you have your fire, that actually counts as a house and you get that full rested bonus. So I did do a little bit of sort of finicky tweaking when it came to actually building the roof within the tree stump. But once you get the hang of it, it really is very simple. After I've done that, I'm actually going to extend the tree ladder out the side of the building, and then I'm just going to go and fix the roof so it has a little bit of a chimney so some smoke can actually escape from the fire itself. One thing I know people are going to be asking is, well, how are you going to have a fireplace in a tree? Because you can't really build a fire unless it's connected to the ground. Now, since the tree itself counts as a structural element of the ground, you have this amazing advantage where you can actually put a stone floor. As you guys can see me right here, I'm putting a stone floor attached to the tree itself. And then I can just put a fire on top of that stone floor and we have a fire inside the treehouse. Now, obviously, aesthetically speaking and realistically speaking, you're going to want to go back down under the tree and just make sure you kind of cover up that stone floor, which is exposed right now, with some wood. And then I also added some structural elements using beams. So I really want this big open window at the edge here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to build 2 beams like this, and I'm going to build another 2 beams at the top like that. This section over here is still going to be a wall because I want a workbench sort of crafting station here. I'm going to build that into a wall. And then I'm going to be using the wooden gates. And I'm going to have one over here like that and another one over here like so. So now I can actually open these like this. and we have a really nice view out to the bottom of the marsh. It can even jump over here, and it's kind of like a shortcut to the staircase. And it kind of looks like an interesting window setup from here too. So we finished our first swamp hut just here, and I want to show you guys. Done a little bit of reinforcement underneath it, as you can see. So it looks like it can actually structurally sort of stand up. But next we're going to be building upwards and onwards right to the canopy of the trees. So as you can see, I've already started to build out this staircase just here, and now we're going to continue onwards. So now for the crow's nest, I'm just building up this staircase, keeping as close to the tree as possible, going up above the roof of the house we just built. And then I'm going to be using the ladder staircase to just climb the final bit up towards the top where the crow nest is going to be. And my friends, if you have not already, if you could just hit that like button with the strength of Thor, I would massively appreciate it, guys, because that really does help me grow the channel. And it's the reason these build videos have really begun to take off. We're literally at the top of this particular tree right now. And if I place a floorboard here, I can see where the floorboard starts to disappear is where I start to lose my tree foundation, as it were. So I'm going to pretty much put this as high as I... Now the crow nest itself doesn't really serve a purpose right now. I mean, I guess it could be a nice place for a portal where you could sort of enter the treehouse rooftops. But I'm pretty much just building a small railing so it's not too easy to fall off, because at this height, if you fall off, obviously you instantly die. And I would hate for someone to come out of the portal and walk right off the edge. Maybe that would be quite funny. I've built a bird's nest at the top here, and now I'm going to be going around with the 1x1 floors just to fill in all the gaps so we can maintain this perfect looking shape. So as you guys can see, as I'm doing the structure for this section, the tree is actually moving with the structure. Now the thing about that is if the tree moves too much, then that means the structure's no longer holding the bird's nest. So you do need to be careful with this kind of one. Like if you have something that's jutting a bit too far out and suddenly it just loses its structural support, it's worth thinking about that kind of stuff. So far we're looking rather nice with our bird's nest. As you can see, it extends up the side here all the way to the top in the canopy. So that's our first house in the village done, but now we need to expand the Ewok village. So starting out on this expansion, I'm just going to be building the most rickety bridge towards the closest other tree to our current building. And then I'm going to use that to easily start to build a sort of rope bridge platform. And as you can see, as I'm building this, it's really just trial and error. I know that I'm using weak materials from the structural source of the other tree, and I just want to see how big a gap I can basically span using the wooden staircase to make it look like a realistic rope bridge. So at one point I do reinforce it with some iron just to make sure that it's going to actually hold its weight for now, just while I can get the span all the way across. But I will go back and remove that in a moment, as you guys can see, because the structure doesn't actually need it. And this is essentially the maximum span that you can create exclusively using the staircase and the wooden platform. And now I'm just going to go back and I'm going to reinforce it with some wooden beams and also some structural beams below as well, going up into the bottom of the rope bridge. This is a little quick tour of all the structure we've built so far. As you can see, we can really sort of, journey safely across the marshlands right now in the treetops. But now we're on the other side and we've sort of got a new treetop to work on. I'm going to start building another base using a crafting table here. So I'm just going to carry on building quite a wide sort of platform around this tree. And I want to build like 2 separate houses, one on each one of these trees. So I'm going to start off with the floor once again. And, these trees are going to come upwards through the actual flooring to add another bit of character to the build. And then obviously we're going to go up with the walls. And I'm still sort of toing and throwing exactly what the flooring of this building is going to look like. So I will often sort of destroy things and then rebuild them again, and I sort of decide, it would be quite interesting to have some of the building sort of jutting up into the air as though it's leaning on these branches that are raising from the base tree trunk. So next I put on the roof of this really rather rickety, dodgy looking elongated building, and then I build out towards what will be the balcony. And as you can see, I've basically kind of pitched over the roof, and I will stop the video and show you this in a moment properly. But I'm going to have some beams, and it's kind of like a viewpoint out into the distance of the swamp area. We're actually going to have a jumping plunge pool in a moment in the next building, so do prepare your anus for that, my friends. So from here you can see how this structure looks. The roof kind of goes up at 30 degrees and then it goes down at 30 degrees at the end. And we have the structural beams on the edge here. Then if we go through the door, you can see there's like a treehouse area just here with a fire in the middle, and we can obviously cook some meat here. And there's a door that's going to go to our next treehouse building on the other branches there. And you guys can see this staircase goes up to this viewing platform. And I can see some of the flame atronach looking creatures down there as well as some other beautiful things about the swamp that I enjoy. You guys can see this is what the supporting structure looks like. It's literally just 45-degree beams going downwards into the tree trunk. So it looks like it's being supported by something and not nothing. I have got that stone visible underneath there. I could cover that up with wood at some point though. And then up here we have the viewing platform. As you guys can see, it's a very simple structure. And the tree kind of follows the natural curve of the building as well there. Next, I'm just going to go back underneath the building and I'm going to reinforce the bottom of it just to make sure it looks realistic. Next, I'm going to be walking over to the other tree canopy and I'm going to be building another flooring for a second building from this one. Now, to be honest with you, I could indefinitely carry on building these small sort of shack-like buildings all the way across the treetops, but I think this is going to be the last sort of house building for this structure, and it's going to have 2 floors. So once again, I'm going to lay the flooring down, then I'm going to do some reinforcements underneath so it looks realistic, and then I'm just going to go back and build the staircase again, and I'm actually going to be setting up kind of like a plunge pool area, so you can see I leave like a little hole to jump down. Now I will actually build a deep pool underneath that in a moment, and I'll explain how to do that, but first I'm just going to build around the walls, and then I'm going to start with a 45-degree pitch roof. Now obviously if you wanted to build a forge up here, you could extend the stone outwards and just about fit one on here because the tree basically acts like building something on the ground. So starting on the roof, we're going to be using 45-degree angled panels, and the reason for that is so that we have much more headroom. There's nothing worse than having like a 30-degree roof and just going into your house and not really being able to move or see anything. I was experimenting quite a bit with the staircase and how the second floor bedroom was going to look. And what I decided on is basically building around the edge with a 45-degree roof panel and then putting the flooring in the center of the ceiling. I ended up going with the wooden ladder up to the second floor and then put the stone panels in for the fireplace and built a little chimney above that so I didn't get smoked out every time I visited this house. The next thing we're going to do is finish off the plunge pool down below underneath this particular treehouse. Alright, so as you guys can see, that is the building I just built above me, and you can see like the hole just underneath it. So I'm directly underneath and I'm going to start mining into the ground. Because we're in the swamp biome, we will basically find water under the ground and we can build like a sort of deep pool here. Alright my friends, let us begin the house tour. As you can see, I am wet with excitement. So starting out, we have the entrance, which is enemy proof. No enemies can ever get up here. We are very, very safe. I've had absolutely no issues. I reckon we could probably even fight bone mass very safely from our treehouse. He wouldn't even be able to attack us from here. Then we've got the first staircase that goes sort of into the tree itself, and we could actually branch off and go into other trees and up other trees if we wanted to, but I've just kept it at this sort of initial treehouse style with 3 grouped buildings together in our starting village. Let me know in the comments though if you want me to expand it in a future video. I've got a little chest down here just so we can store some arrows inside it to shoot down on enemies below and clear the way before we engage in any explorative activities, and then we spiral around the tree trunk through the branches here up to our first little hut, shall we call it. A nice modest hut with a cauldron in, a place to sit and sleep. This is where the servants usually sleep, you know. Obviously we have our shuttered windows, so I love that it kind of turns into the corner of the wall and then you can just open it out and maybe shoot some more arrows down below. In fact, we're kind of getting up into the territory right now where the enemies don't actually render below us anymore because we're so high up. So now we climb onto the rooftop. We can also go to the rest of the village over there, but let's have a look out at the bird's nest, my friends. If you walk up these, you're quite safe, but if you sprint, that's where you can fall. So obviously I can walk through this bit of tree trunk here because they're just sort of pixelated tree bushes, but I just love the aesthetic of this. Got such a great view down below there. You can see all over the swampland. Bone mass is actually just over here, so maybe I'll bring him over here later and see if our base survives. But I'm a big fan. We'll probably end up putting a portal on here just for a in and out entrance into the base, but I've not actually bothered doing any portal building yet. You can see, by the way, I've opted for these standard green burning iron torches that use guck as fuel instead of wood. So guck is quite plentiful in the swamps, but I also just prefer the aesthetic anyway. And you can also build them on these sort of bits of wood that are jutting out from the supporting structure. And then we have our long rope bridge going over to the next house here, which is also a wooded area. And then I have another little campfire. Now, there is a bit of clipping here, so usually this campfire's on and you can see the wood coming through the structure, which I kind of like that it sort of just adapts around the building. I did not bring any wood with me. Disgusting. So up here at the top, we can see there's a nice little viewing platform, so I can look out over that structure over there, see if there's any attacking enemies and shoot them down as they cross the bridge, even though there never is really. And I also built a nice interesting structure up here, and the wood tree kind of like molds into the structure itself as well. I was thinking about destroying this at some point and maybe continuing our rope bridges along the tree line over there as well. But for now, I think this is fine. This is kind of like a little interior cooking station sort of hub area. And now we're at my main sort of house with a big oak door. It's actually got like a little bit of a roof over it for when you enter, so you don't get wet, you can dry off. We've got our wood fire over here, and there's actually a chimney to stop everyone getting smoked out. And we have a fully upgraded workbench just here to level 5 with an A's tool shelf and a wood chopping block, ironically next to the supporting tree structure, which you can't actually chop down anyway, but you know, it's just sort of immersive, I guess. And we've got tons of storage chests and also the emergency exit, which I'll show you guys in a moment. So let's go up to the top floor here. We've got a lovely roof canopy view out towards the boss. Actually, no, it's not towards the boss. I lied. But a great view over the swamp biome there. I just love the aesthetic of this place. And we've got the tanning rack, which is still in range of the workbench as well. Another little window and also a bed that I'm currently using as a spawn point there. I have lots more room for other beds. I could probably fit like a few along the top here if I actually wanted to. I've just not bothered. Oh, am I on fire? Now with the plunge pool here, you do actually need to drop down and push forward, so you actually end up going into the plunge pool. But as you can see, it's pretty much just deep enough for you not to take any full damage at all, which is pretty magical. So it's like the fastest way of just getting out into the swamp and beginning your adventure once again. And you can see if you look at the roof canopy, we've come all the way down there and back down the spine of that tree over there to the base. So I kind of expect to grow this sort of treehouse along, and maybe I'll do an update video at some point. But you know, you can build these tree houses all over the place because there's so many unique structures that you can just sort of mold architecture onto, and that's what I love about this particular build. So please, please, please let me know in the comments if you actually enjoyed this episode, and leave a like if you did, because it really does help support the channel. It was a really fun build. I've always loved the idea of an Ewok village, and if you guys want to check out Opera GX, link down below in the description, please do that as well. But again, thank you for watching. I will see you in the next Valheim build guide.